Hello everyone, Michael E. Parker here, and we are ready for another YouTube episode, and we are talking about, have you ever heard the phrase, don't drop the ball, right? Don't drop the ball, don't mess up, don't, not follow through, right? This is what we mean when we hear the term, don't drop the ball. Well, I'm gonna talk to you about why you need to drop the ball and what that actually means, and maybe a different perspective. We're talking about essentially how to do everything by doing nothing. Now, I know that seems kind of strange, but it's really, really critical because sometimes in pursuit of doing everything, we end up not doing anything. So we have to learn how to really determine what are the areas that we should be focusing our efforts on doing certain things, and what are the areas we should be not focusing our efforts on doing things, and really to know when to stop, when to go, when to move, when to not move. So this is kind of the battle of life. It's trying to determine how to get everything done. We're faced with so many things. If you can understand what I'm talking about, we have to balance work. We have to balance health. We have to balance personal time for ourselves. We have to balance relationships. There's all the things we're doing with our health. We have to do all the things with our family. If you're a parent, you have to balance things with your children. There's so many things that we have to do. And I think most of you can relate to the fact that life is made up of just so many small decisions we have to make all throughout the day, and critical priorities and choices that we have to really balance between and figure out, like, which route am I going to go? Which one am I going to take? There's only one me, and yet there's many things pulling from me. There's many things asking of me. And so I don't know if you've ever felt that sense of overwhelm. How do I get to everything? How do I, really begin to make sure that I can feel successful at accomplishing all the people, or I should say all the things that people are relying on me for, right? All the things that are requesting of me to deliver on. And so I want you all to really consider this when we talk about drop the ball. Now, there's two different approaches I want to speak to you about when we talk about dropping the ball that is very critical to understand. I'm going to head over to my whiteboard for a minute, and I want to explain two different ways of looking at this. Now, one way is let's consider, here we are, right? And we're we got our ball here, and, I'm trying to hold on to this ball, and at the same time, I'm walking on a tightrope, right? We call this the tightrope of life, right? And I want to get, to some destination that I feel is out there, and at that destination, right, I feel like there's this bag of money, right, that is waiting for me, right, if I can just get over there. And we're teetering and balancing, and maybe we can view the water below. There's danger down here, right? We don't want to fall, and we don't want to drop the ball. And sometimes we feel like we have this whole concept, we talk about life balance, right? And this is really not a true, statement. It's not even humanly possible, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But it's kind of how we feel, like we're walking on this tightrope, and we're trying to determine how to balance and not drop the ball, right? And there's all kinds of things in this ball, right? Inside of this ball, we have, let me make my pen a little smaller here. We have different responsibilities, right? We got our dreams in here. We've got, different goals. We've got career. We've got maybe entrepreneurship, depending on what you're doing, right? We've got, we might have children, we got health, right? There's all kinds of stuff. And that ball seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's so many things, even in one of those things, there's so many things, right? So you can dig deep into all of those words, and whatever that ball is for you, whatever it is that you're carrying as you try to walk the tightrope of life. And in our mind, right, if we create this rule right? The rules of the game, right, is that, I want to increase my pen size here, make you see this better, right? If you make it across without dropping the ball, you win. So this is a potential focus of life we could have, right? Looks like this. And, we can all have our perception of, how true this is for all of us. And we set the rules in this game of life and saying, if you can make it across without dropping the ball, if that is the context, there's a certain way we live our life. So we add to this ball and we say, I don't want to drop the ball. I don't want to drop the ball in the water. I don't want to fall in the water. I have to get across. And on the other side of this is wealth and money and the way I want to look, the way I want to be, my, advancement in my career, being happy, whatever those things are. We have this perception of if I don't drop the ball. Now, I don't know how many of you can relate to this when you hear the term don't drop the ball. If any of you have heard that out there, right? Don't drop the ball. Make sure you, don't let down. Make sure you do everything you're supposed to do. And we all have heard this. And in some senses, we all can relate and understand. We don't want to be individuals that don't do what we set out to do. We don't want to be people who didn't finish. We talk about that a lot, like being a finisher and not just a starter, being able to actually achieve and get things done, right? Making sure you execute, making sure, you're not someone who gives up. So all of those things, we've heard, right? So there's this mental side that comes from this, right? And we've heard, right? Don't give up, right? Never quit. Make sure, fix that. So make sure you finish. Right? We've heard these things. So these are the things kind of in our mind, right? We think these thoughts in our mind and we feel again, I just don't want to drop this ball, right? Don't give up, never quit. Make sure you finish. Now, I want you to understand that this is something we can all relate to. We understand this way of thinking. And I want you to know, if you think this way and feel this way, it's very, very common. We all have a sense of this. And it's some aspects of this that, you don't want to be someone who doesn't finish and, doesn't give your all. But I want to introduce to you to a different way of looking at this that we need to also understand. So there's, we really want to understand the distinctions and why it is so important. And let me say this before talking about this other way of looking at this. This whole concept of life balance, let's deal with this for a minute, right? And we know when we think about the scale of life, right? And in that scale of life, we think about, how do we create that balance that we want? And, this whole concept of this balance, right? So this is, balance is impossible, right? I would say true balance is impossible, right? So if we talked about, right, to be clear, I can't, right? I can't give equal time to everything, right? So this is very important to realize and to come to this understanding. I can't give equal time to everything. I can't. So I can tell you as an entrepreneur and someone who balances so much, I have many different responsibilities, many things that I do in my life, in the community, in my businesses. I have a lot of responsibility in churches, and there's so many things, right? There's so many people and demands. And if you honestly want to say, I'm going to give an equal amount of minutes and hours to every single thing in life, you would go crazy, right? There's not enough time in a day to give everything equal time. So this is just a false concept, right? So if you can say, family and work and parenting and time for leisure things, right? Maybe there's things, I'm going to say like friends, health, throw fitness separately if we want. There's sleep, right? And I could keep going. Well, there's no way to give equal time to all of these things. I mean, think about how much of our time just goes to working, right? Just working, however you work. There's a lot of time that goes here. We will all agree. We spend a lot of time here in this thing called work, right? We all do. And so, think about sleep, right? We should be getting, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Many of us are not getting the proper sleep, but we should be, right, getting 7 to 8 hours. So think about just the significance of some of these things in our life, and it's impossible. It is literally impossible to give equal time to everything. So this concept of life balance, right? So we talk about life balance. This is really not real. There is no such thing as life balance. We have to get out of that thinking. So and many of you have heard us talk about, and you are a CEO, I am a strong promoter of life rhythm, right? So really talking about more of the music of life. So we should be looking at life more like we do a song, and a song has many different movements to it. And we want to understand how our life is moving. And even when we consider just music itself, and let's look at, we give them a full screen there. Yes, so we look here, and I'm just looking at, let's take an instrument that is so musically powerful as the piano, right? And if you look at just the piano and you look at some of the things that we learn, what's so powerful about music and how music is formed and created, we start to understand the differences and how music is really doing certain things to the ear and causing the ear to understand a song and a message and a melody. Now that is only happening because music has rules, right? So music, right? Music is really a set of rules and patterns. So we want to understand that life needs a set of rules and patterns that we create. And when we create rules and patterns in our life, we'll find that this is way more effective at understanding what you should be doing because you've put some rules in place that you're going to follow. If you're going to have a song that is going to be played, let's say, in the key of E flat, there's a set of rules for being in E flat because there's only so many notes in that scale. It's different than being in the key of C, right? Or being in the key of A or what have you. There could be all of these things, or A flat. every one of those has a different set of rules. And then there's patterns within those rules that make it a song. So we want to understand in our life, what are the things that we are beginning to create rules for? And then once we have that set of rules, what pattern are we creating? In other words, what am I going to do Monday versus Wednesday, Tuesdays versus Thursdays? What am I going to do on Saturday? What am I doing on Sundays and Sunday evenings? What are the things that I'm creating rules for about my health? First, I got to understand, what are the rules? What are we trying to even do here, right? What key are we in with respect to our health? What key are we in? What do we want to do for our children? What are we trying to do in our relationships? What are we trying to do in our entrepreneurship journey, right? Then once we do that, what are the patterns? In other words, what am I focusing on right now that I would really begin to create a certain song? And think about it. In music is really built on tension and rest, right? So when you're listening to a song, it's very powerful that you can hear where the song maybe is rising and is falling, and there's a certain level of tension there, but the ear knows that this needs to land somewhere, because if it doesn't land somewhere, it doesn't make sense to the brain. So music is very powerful in terms of how it moves, because you'll feel that tension and you'll hear it, and you know that it needs to land somewhere, like where, we call it sometime in music coming back to the one, where there's actually a rest there to the ear. And see, this is very important. See, life is really made up of tension and rest. There's moments of tension where you need to focus very vehemently on something, right? You can't have balance when you're in tension. You might be in tension right now about your business, about your health, and you need to make that a priority right now because it's important. If you find out something from a doctor, you can't be trying to have balance. You got to be intense about that. You got to provide tension to that. If you know you need to get on track with something you need to learn because you're trying to educate yourself so you can create more wealth in your life, then you got to have tension about reading those books. You got to stay up and do the work as necessary. You got to find a way to do the things that are required. You got to make time for that. But you also must have time for rest. If you don't have time for rest, then you won't be able to have times of tension. You got to have the rest. And when you have tension and rest, you're going to create a song. And that song will sing the melody that you are moving forward in your life at this time, and your life changes. So that's you thankful. There's not just one song that exists in life, right? There's all kinds of songs that have been written. And this is how life is. You go through different seasons, different songs that you're singing as your life begins to move, and you must understand tension and rest. There's not balance, there's tension and there's rest. Where do you need to be in tension? Where do you need to be in rest? And see, there are certain patterns. So for example, I'm going to use a music scale. So here, this is a music scale, and we're looking at the key of C. So this is, you use numbers in music. So in the scale of music, the C would be the first note, right? And B would be the seventh note. And actually in a lot of music, all of our musicians out there know this, a lot of focus is on the 1, the 4, and the 5. And you can play a lot of songs just based on those patterns. And did you know that there's patterns that just work to the ear in music? There's some things that just work, right? So for example, a movement from the ear goes from the 2 to the 5, and this is musical, and if you don't know a lot about music, don't worry about it. I just want you to understand that there's patterns. But this movement from the 2 to the 5 was going to always sound good, and from the 5 to the 1 is going to always have a good sound most of the time, right? And sometimes you might go from the 1 to the 4, then to the 5, back to the 1. Or, so there's all these movements, right, that makes a song work. I just want you to understand these patterns are really real. And so when you study why music sounds good, there's a reason. And if someone plays a note that is wrong, if they're in a key and play a note outside of that key, you will notice it. And we have to understand that in our life, when something is out of key, right? There's a term in music we use sometime called dissonance. I don't know if I'm spelling this right, but And dissonance to the ear, there's a gap. There's a big gap between the way something sounds, right? How it should sound from how it's sounding. There's the gap. You can hear that there's a separation that shouldn't be there. And see, we have to understand this in our life. See, are we following the pattern based on the key we're supposed to be in right now? Right? Are we in tension? Are we in rest? Are we moving from the 2 to the 5 to the 1 because that makes sense in our life right now? Are we totally out of sync? So I want you to understand that this is all related to our life. And you must know what rhythm am I in? What's more important right now? If I'm going to be in the key, for example, of E flat, I have to be able to drop notes that are not in that key if I want to play a song in that key. So this means that sometimes if you're in a certain rhythm or a certain pattern, there's things you have to drop in order to stay in that key. So if you're going to be successful in certain things you're trying to do, some of you can't do it because you're trying to sing 2 songs at the same time. I don't know if anyone really heard what I just said. I'm going to say it one more time. Some of you all can't make music in your life because you're trying to sing 2 songs at the same time, and not all notes go into the same key. You got to drop something in order to be able to make that particular key sound good, right? So this is very important. So let's go back here, and I want you to see, let's do another analogy here. We're still talking about dropping the ball here. Now here's another way to look at this, right? Here, got this big ball still, right? But I want you to understand that now we've got something else here where there is an opportunity, right? And that money bag, someone's trying to hand us this money bag, right? So this is you, and this is opportunity. So this is another way of looking at this whole ball situation, right? So we've got the ball, right? And here we've got opportunity with a smile on his face, right? Ready to go. And here we got you, a lot of stress, tension, right? Maybe even some sweat coming down. And you're trying to do all this stuff and not realizing that sometimes the things that we really want, the only way for this individual to get this opportunity is they have to put this ball down, right? They've got to drop the ball in order to have access to this opportunity. So this is why sometimes we must understand that dropping the ball is the right thing to do. All right, what are you talking about? See, if you don't, first of all, here's the first issue, is are you able to recognize opportunity, right? Are you just walking the tightrope of life? You don't recognize opportunity. You don't see an opportunity what's in front of you, right? You're so busy trying to hold everything together when most of what you're holding together, right? If I were go inside of this ball, probably, right? This part is probably most valuable to your life. And this part, most of it is waste, right? So all of this waste in this ball, right, and the stuff that's really you doing that matters most to you, but you're fighting to carry something in which most of it is not adding any value to you whatsoever. You think it is, you think it's necessary, you think it matters, you think it's important, but you don't see that there's all kind of opportunities surrounding you and things coming towards you, you won't make room for it because you want to hold on to the ball because your perception is still, I'm walking the tightrope of life and I only am successful if I never drop the ball. But if you relook at things from a different perspective, you will find that sometimes dropping the ball, right, is the greatest thing you could ever do to pick up the opportunity, to actually have the song and the melody that you should be singing right now to advance your life forward. And some things that you drop, you can pick up again later, and some things that you drop, you should have never had it in the first place. So you must make a decision when it's time to drop the ball, because sometimes you need to turn something you're doing into something you're not doing so you can do the things that you should be doing. And that is why I say sometimes you can't do everything, right? You need to do nothing so you can do everything. What do I mean? Do nothing more with that. Do nothing more with this. Do nothing more with that thing that is not actually helping you move forward. Do nothing more with those people that are holding you back. Do nothing more with those thoughts that are holding you back. Do nothing more with those tasks that don't mean anything. Stop wasting time entertaining yourself when you should be educating yourself. Stop wasting time listening to people who aren't going where you say you want to go. Stop being around and watching other people be successful instead of putting time into your own success. So I hope you see what I mean, that we must be willing to drop the ball. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to leave it right there, and I am going to drop the mic about dropping the ball. And I hope you see this. Make sure you like and you subscribe and you comment and share this with people you know need to hear it. It's time to drop the ball so we can pick up the opportunity and success that is required so that we can move forward to the melody that we want to sing in life, the key that we should be in based on where we are now. So in the end of the day, we will make sure that our life is something we live on our terms because we are the CEO of our life. I'm Michael E. Parker. Make sure that you do everything you can to not just hear what I've said, but use it to be a better you. I'll see you next time.